Well, howdy, folks. Welcome back to another Out of Spec podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, joined by Max Patton, and we're here to talk about Porsche. Now, the best looking EV in the world is getting a facelift, which is kind of confusing to me because I love the Taycan. I think it looks absolutely stunning, one of the best designs out there. But we're here to talk about a facelift that's kind of breaking news. I mean, it's so breaking that I'm coming to you from a children's room in an Airbnb, sitting on one of these stools. So it's important enough to talk about, at least important to me and Max. So let's jump right in, shall we? I'll have visuals for all those who are watching on YouTube. If you're an audio listener, I will try to describe it for you. So, Max, what do you see here, and what do you think of this potential facelift? I mean, it's basically a spy shot, so we don't know if this is the final rendition, but looks good.
Yeah, so Spy Shot, courtesy of Ben O'Hare with Inside EVs. So this is being tested in Germany. And yeah, it looks good, but like you were saying, Taycan's already a good looking vehicle. This doesn't seem to be making too many changes. The one that they're testing here is actually using the standard rims, the 20-inch Sport Aero ones we're already familiar with. It's a black paint color, so nothing too revealing but the bodywork. But basically, it just looks like they're tweaking the bumper and the headlights. So it's literally a facelift. It doesn't seem like a big architectural change like we're expecting for Taycan, maybe more towards the second half of this decade.
Yeah. And I controversially maybe, or I don't know, it's my opinion. I This looks really clean, but it is a little disappointing. I think the normal Taycan we have now is better because I like the way the headlights emanate towards the sides and then droop down. That's very like distinctly Taycan. And in fact, back in the day when I was less into cars, right when the Taycan came out, I was intrigued, but I kept getting them confused with the Panamera. And I was like, oh, that's the design cue that separates it from the Panamera. Now we have a Taycan that's looking a bit more like a Panamera, which is fine. Panamera still looks good. But this is unexpected to me. But then again, I wonder if this is genuinely like, spy shot of a final facelift version, or if they're still making tweaks. It's so hard to tell what's camouflaged and what's not. I mean, Porsche does like to be very secretive. Now, me and Kyle were in Germany a few weeks ago, or I guess months ago at this point. Time flies. And we saw some Macan EVs being tested. It was about 1 a.m. We were at a charging station in the middle of nowhere in Germany, and they looked pretty nervous when we got out with our cell phones. In fact, they were like, "You should leave." So we'll talk about Macan EV in a bit, but it's the the Porsche German engineering teams seem to be pretty elusive. Although again, this is a facelift, not a new vehicle like the Macan EV. Granted, the Macan's not new, but the EV component of that is pretty groundbreaking and new. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I like this, but I just like Porsche's design language in general. I'm hoping this is not the final form, if I had to put it that way.
If you want to pull up the current Taycan configurator so we can kind of see, I agree with you. I think the eyelets, I like to call it the kind of like eyeshadow on the Taycan, is a really
Yeah.
distinctive look. I believe it was carried over from like the Mission E prototype, so like, the middle of last decade. So in reality, this actually is kind of an old design, so it's about time for a facelift, especially in the Porsche world. But I agree with you. I don't think it's like it's a design that has aged well. It doesn't seem like I don't see a Taycan on the road today and think that's out of date. And I don't even confuse it with the Panamera too often. Obviously, it's a similar kind of wheelbase. It's four doors, but I think the headlights alone are so distinctive. And then, of course, there's those aerodynamic treatments and features that let us know it's a Taycan that tell me that it's, I think, aged like fine wine. So I agree. I'm kind of like any change they make, I feel like is almost a downgrade without completely revamping it. So if they're just doing a facelift to have a new model year, fair enough. But it is a bit disappointing, especially in those headlights, that it seems like they're kind of going towards a less bold and distinctive look.
Yeah. And as I zoom in on the photo, I can kind of see plastic and black stuff kind of hiding. So I think they did this to make it look like a more normal car. So I think there actually will be an interesting eyeshadow effect, just updated minorly, because a lot of the Porsche facelifts are minor. Still welcomed, but I think this is, as you said, a facelift, not a technology lift. There's still going to be all the same underlying tech, which is fine because Taycan is 800-volt architecture. It already was kind of a thing of the future, which is cool. But I kind of, for our visual listeners, I do have the spy photo, and then in the configurator tried to make the same thing, the same 20-inch sport era wheels, same color. You can kind of see very subtle changes. In fact, it's hard to tell if it even is different. I mean, when I keep looking at it back and forth, it's like the wrapping on the spy photo is just covering up what almost looks like is normal Taycan. It's hard to see much of a change, and that's probably
Yeah.
intentional. They're trying to hide it. That's how they do
Yeah,
it.
Porsche being sneaky, but also like you saying, the foundations of Taycan are so solid. It's not like they know that they don't need to update it for a bit, and that next generation one is not due for another few years from now. So it's kind of like, well, if you're a Volkswagen Group or if you're Porsche specifically, what do you do year to year to get people to buy a new Taycan? I don't
Yeah.
know. Like I remember I was thinking, I was actually having a conversation with Kyle about how I hope the Taycan follows Panamera and depreciating a lot. Because,
Yeah.
it'd be sweet if I got to use Taycan in a few years, I was thinking. And Kyle was telling me, well, based off everything he thinks, that's not likely because if you think about it, Taycan's such a bleeding edge architecture still,
Mhm.
whereas Panamera, when it came out, it's ice, so it obviously ages quicker. They made a
Yeah.
lot of changes. It seems like the current model year Taycans are the ones that people have been buying since 2019 have held up pretty well, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be that many functional changes to the lineup really at all, aside from maybe a few models, which we can kind of talk about.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been out that long because even just a few months ago driving Taycan, you still get so many looks. Everyone thinks it's the coolest thing ever, especially if you have one with those kind of Mission E wheels following the prototype design that we saw on the Mission E. I love Porsche's electric kind of direction, and I have some minor gripes about the Taycan. I don't love the software. Even the software has been a bit buggy. I have a few friends who own Taycans and they've had some issues. I drove a Taycan back from Vegas this summer and
Mm-hmm.
had issues where I had to like reboot the entire OS every few hours because it would just freeze up. And it's just weird stuff. But it's still, that's software that can be worked on. I will say the entire Volkswagen group's not known for amazing software. So minor things with the Taycan, the climate control screen I don't like. Some people think it's just too small inside. I love that. Granted, I come from a Miata, so everything's huge, and the Taycan feels more at home. I still think my best automotive experience ever was Taycan GTS Sport Turismo. So Taycan is a special place in my heart. Can't wait to see what they do with this facelift. But we also have another Taycan model rumored to be join the forces, join the ranks pretty soon.
Yes, so it looks like we're gonna get a just iteratively, ever so much spicier Taycan because we already have in the lineup, like you were saying, it goes up to GTS, and then you can get the Sport Turismo or the Cross Turismo, and there's also Turbo, which is a controversial name because it doesn't actually have a turbocharger, but that's faster than GTS, and then there's Turbo S, which is currently the superlative of the Taycan lineup. So now we're gonna get a Turbo GT model, which is the new top dog in Taycan speak. So we can expect basically tri motors, kind of a similar, honestly, architecture to Plaid. It seems like this is going to be Porsche's attempt to take back some of that attention that Tesla kind of stole, with the Plaid being the accelerating, you know,
Yeah,
horsepower and torque beast that it is.
and they've jumped back and forth in the spotlight. The Taycan and the Plaid have, or just Model S in general, have batted at each other on the Nürburgring, setting new lap times and trying to be the best. So this feels like direct reaction to Plaid. Plaid made headlines with 1,000 horsepower tri-motor. Of course, they made headlines with the 1.99 second 0 to 60, which is stupid fast,
With
and
a
also
lot of caveats on that 1.99.
yeah, stupid fast, and also stupid asterisks tied to that. But still, it pulls like nothing other. And a lot of electric vehicles, the party trick is 0 to 60 in X amount of time. The Plaid is stupid cool because it keeps going in that relatively same acceleration to like 150 allegedly. Um, yeah, so I would love to drive this 1,000 horsepower turbo GT. I will stay away from every curb possible and leave traction control on. And
There's no track mode. Actually, we do they don't the Germans don't call it track mode on the Porsches.
they, I don't, yeah, ring mode. I don't know.
I know there's Nuremberg on the new Volkswagen and Audi high end stuff, but I don't know about Porsche.
Yeah, Nürburgring mode. But yeah, I'm excited about this and the Turbo GT. I mean, yeah, it's funny how many Taycan models have turbo in the name, and sure, it's controversial in some way because yeah, turbo technically means a turbocharger, but also Porsche has always used turbo in their lineup as a like a variant of an existing car. So it wasn't always tied to whether it had a turbo. So I kind of get it. I'm not going to be mad because I love Taycan. So obviously some bias, but we'll see how it stacks up. One of the issues with the Plaid, which we've now addressed, our friend Timon installed some new brakes on Kyle's Plaid, and that has helped it, although I don't know if it's fully remedied it. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe this one's probably better braked. I mean, the Turbo S Taycan is a fantastically set up car from the factory, whereas the Plaid felt like it was missing some components to be a proper track car, which is fine because how many people track their Plaid? Not many. But for those who want to, there's some aftermarket solutions. Tesla, of course, is developing their own ceramic brake kit, which actually they've kind of developed it already. And I think Marquez Brownlee may have gotten it on his Plaid already, which is interesting. He just posted a random photo with no caption, but everyone's looking in, like reading into that a little bit. But I don't know. Porsche's electric future, I think, is fairly bright, which is ironic because they're kind of sister slash owned by Volkswagen, whose electric future is looking less bright. Kind of confusing. But the 800-volt architecture, everything about the Taycan's fantastic. But we have some other vehicles supposedly coming in the works. Like I said, we saw Macan EV test mules. They seemed like very early pre-production prototypes. I don't even know what to call them prototypes. They were like missing body panels and stuff.
Oh wow.
But what do you know about Macan EV, and are you excited or intrigued by that?
So Macan EV, obviously being the follow-up to the gas crossover, basically, there's not much that we know aside from the fact that it's coming very soon. It has been delayed a bit, but we're gonna get, I think, a 2024 model year of it. So that's going to be really exciting. And I think Macan is a watershed moment for EVs in general. There you can see kind of a spy shot of it. Um, Obviously, it's not going to, be camoed and look like that,
It's not gonna
but
be
that
ugly like that. But can I
unless,
just
and
point out?
yeah.
Can I just point out this delay over slow software development is ironic because, well, that's Volkswagen's car yard, which is just a mess in some ways, in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, honestly, I'll take this delay over having crappy software at launch
Mhm.
because we've seen way too much of that in other companies and also within the Volkswagen umbrella.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping this delay means they're going to have rock solid software or at least close to it. Rivian had some minor issues when it came out, but relatively speaking, it was good. Just missing a few features we wanted and we asked for them and we're getting them. So hopefully we see some of this. But are you like happy they're doing a Macan EV, or did you expect them to do like a whole new ground up vehicle like Taycan?
Well, personally, it's hard because I'm not like an SUV or a crossover person, but I know
Mm,
like if we're just honest with ourselves in the mainstream, for most people, even people who buy Porsches and luxury sporty goods, SUVs are the thing right now in America, even in Europe. So I was talking to a friend, she's not a car person, but she was like, yeah, like I when they release a Macan, she does like Porsches, and she was like, when they release a Macan, that's the one that I hope I'm making enough money to buy. Like that's just generally, I think, what most normal people want is they want that lifted crossover hatchback style with more space. So Macan's going to be huge, and then following up, I think the next model year after that, assuming the software is still good, is Cayenne. So the bigger, the big boy, and Cayenne, of course, its gas version was, I think, also a watershed moment for Porsche when that came out, right? Because that kind of
yeah.
told Porsche execs that, oh, if you make SUVs, that's actually going to become your best-selling vehicle. And then Macan came later and the smaller one. So Macan, I think, makes sense as a just volume product, and then follow it up with Cayenne for people who need more space. I think that's really exciting. It's not exciting to me personally, but if you care about Porsche's survivability as a brand and their place within Volkswagen Group, then I think you should care about these SUVs.
Yeah, it makes sense because the Cayenne was kind of groundbreaking at the time because it was like, oh, like an actual sports SUV, which I think was controversial. There's still some controversy, but at the same time, everyone's doing them. BMW is leaning into the M SUV, which for better or for worse. I personally like Porsche's approach more. And, we'll see what happens with this Taycan Turbo GT. We'll see what kind of spicy electric SUVs they put out. You can only imagine they will, because there's competition in that space as well. Tesla has the Model X Plaid. Rivian has the R1S, which is by default pretty quick and capable. Not a track beast of any kind. It's just by default of having four motors, and at least in the quad motor variant, just happens to be quick. So I don't know where they're going with this, but there's obviously some market share for it. And of course, being Porsche, they'll try to capture it because it's performance minded and Porsche is performance minded. Any final thoughts before we
Yeah, we
close
also
out?
have mentioned Panamera
Oh,
earlier in this
yeah.
conversation, and interestingly enough, this actually took me by surprise when I, read up on it. We've known this for a few weeks now, but Panamera is actually going to keep on living. I thought, Taycan was the new Panamera, right? Four
Hmm.
door, kind of heavier Porsche vehicle that blurs the lines of luxury and sport. Well, there is going to be basically a fatter Taycan or a bigger one, which will be a Panamera as we know it today, but it's going to be all electric. So both the next gen Taycan and Panamera will share an architecture, but the Panamera will be bigger, more spacious, more luxurious, more akin to something like an EQS
Yeah.
from
And
Mercedes, of
yeah,
course.
you can't forget about the Panamera, even though a lot of people do, because it is impressive. And actually, I'm pulling up a video here because I spent some time with Panamera because they've kind of been leaning this direction anyways. I'll just pull this up visually without playing it because I'm not currently signed in. But this PHEV video we did, I basically drove every Porsche plug-in hybrid because that's the direction they're going with Cayenne and Panamera. I drove three different Panameras as well as the Cayenne Turbo SE hybrid, and then I drove the Panamera Turbo SE hybrid, the Panamera 4SE hybrid Sport Turismo. There's a lot of words and
Porsche are
syllables and
masters
thing.
at the suffix and the like adding another acronym. I think no other company does it as well as them.
Yeah, but they were already going this direction with their Panamera, with the e-hybrid system. They've been making hybrids for over a decade now. I don't know if that many people know that, but the e-hybrid was so impressive. And actually, the most powerful Porsche, at least that a consumer can buy right now, is a Panamera. It's the Turbo S e-hybrid with something like 700 horsepower or 790. I don't know, a stupid amount of power. It felt stupid. Twin turbo V8 plus an electric motor. And you can drive it in all electric mode for like 30 miles, which is awesome. It felt so well put together and rock solid. Not that fast in electric only mode, but that's not the point. The electric is meant
Mhm.
to support the twin turbo V8 in case the twin turbo V8 is not enough for you. So the fact that it can do all those things is brilliant. I mean, that's a car I would daily because a lot of my commutes are less than 30 miles. So just putter around an electric, and then when I hit a canyon or a racetrack, just let all the beans loose and the horses out and all the puns. But that's makes sense that that's the direction they're going. The Panamera is more spacious than the Taycan, so I guess I see it has a place. You have Taycan Turismo, whichever sport or cross, so you have a bit more space with the hatchback, and then you have Panamera, which is a sedan. Then you have Panamera, which can be sport Turismo, which is a bit more hatchback. Then you have Macan, which is shorter but more hatchy. It's like they're lifted hatchback. It's called an SUV, but it really feels like a hot hatch, just a little taller. And then you have the Cayenne, which is the full-on SUV. So they're trying to branch into every freaking size for better or for worse, and we'll see where it goes.
And one more note I want to add is in terms of Porsche and electrification, I like you pointing out they've been making hybrids for a decade. So if we're looking at the trickle down of electrification, you have your brand new products, obviously like Taycan, and then everything else that's
Yeah.
going to get an EV version. But even you gasoline purists, 911 lovers, well, I'm sorry, but hybrids are coming to that, and we live in a post-Acura NSX world, the new one, the outgoing one, I guess. But we
Yeah.
live in a world where people realize that even in a gasoline hypercar or supercar or sports car of any kind, you can legitimately make it faster with hybrid componentry. It's not just about emissions. Sometimes it's about, like you said, providing that a little bit of extra grunt, even to an amazing engine like a twin turbo V8. So for 911, it looks like I don't know what kind of electrification we're seeing, but it's not going to be a battery EV yet. Don't worry, purist.
Yeah,
But it's looking like there'll be some kind of mild hybrid system coming to future 911s. So the whole Porsche lineup is getting electrified to some degree, some more than others, just I think based off obviously weight and vehicle dynamics. We can't
which is
make our,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, it's cool if you ask me. Of course, the 918, the famous, infamous hypercar that was hybrid from about 10 years ago, was somewhat co-developed alongside their first hybrid, which was the Cayenne. And the Cayenne hybrid was like meh, it's fine. Like the new one's good, but the original one was like, okay, it's I guess it's a little bit better gas mileage. The 918 is what made all the headlines. Of course, it was unobtainium, no one can get it, super expensive, but it competed with the LaFerrari and stuff like that, the NSX, all those crazy hybrid high performance things. That's what's trickled down. In fact, the Panamera Turbo SE hybrid has the same tech as the 918. So if you want a budget 918 for a measly 150 grand, go with the Panamera Turbo SE hybrid and have a blast, I guess. Yeah. So, anyways, that's a quick news flash for the. I mean, I guess we started talking about Taycan facelift, which is that's the big news. Of course, we kind of knew it was coming, but we're finally seeing some theoretically spy shots. I don't know that shot. I guess it could have been old Taycan, but then why would they cover it up? So you're right. That's probably the new headlights, the new something kind of blended over a bit to be stealthy. And can't wait to see where it goes. Let us know what you think of mid-gen refreshes, facelifts. I mean, that's a very Porsche thing, but everyone kind of does that. I mean, even my Miata, in my third generation Miata, had two facelifts. So there's a NC1, 2, and 3. I don't know why, but they're very minor. And that's kind of the point. It just keeps it a little bit fresh, maybe sell a few more cars, and we'll see where it goes from there. I don't know. Any last thoughts, Max, before we take care on this Halloween?
Uh, no, I agree with you. Everything you said. I mean, we'll see where it goes. Porsche are the masters of iteration, and TikTok, it's coming for Taycan too. So, I'm excited for their electric future. I guess it's good that in this episode that we kind of broaden that out. There's plenty more to discuss there. We'll obviously have a bunch of content up once Cayenne and those other products do come out in the coming years. But for now, it's exciting to look at where Taycan's heading. And like you said earlier, the electric future for Porsche, at least, if not the rest of Volkswagen Auto Group, is looking pretty bright.
Yep. So, thanks for watching and joining in on us nerding out about Porsche, one of my favorite brands to discuss in their in weakness and strength and all that. And if Halloween is a thing you do, happy Halloween.
Yeah,
That's
happy
at least
Halloween.
when this episode is airing. So October 31st, dressing up, I guess. Yeah, I'm wearing an otter onesie, I guess. So the millennial cop out, if you will. But thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on another podcast very soon. And see you down below in the comments to discuss.